Hi everyone, my name is René and I'm the owner of License to Skill. We are an IISA accredited training provider, and amongst doing amazing RE training in terms of regulatory exam prep workshops in order to prepare you to go and write the RE exams, RE1 and 5, and apart from possibly having some of the best RE material in the industry, we also do full qualifications on level 4 and 5 for the insurance industry, which includes wealth management and long-term and short-term and retail insurance. We also do class of business training and CPD like any, professional IISA accredited training provider should be able to do, a one-stop shop. It's my job to help you become FAIS fit and proper and to ensure that you remain that way. And we also design some pretty awesome RPL tools, recognition of prior learning, which means that you can get a full qualification if you've got 5 years experience or more, with a few exams and a portfolio and that kind of thing. But so not the reason for my video today. The reason for my video today is just to help you prepare further and fully for this RE exam that you are about to write by assisting you with a couple of tips for the exam and also just to show you what to look out for and that kind of thing. Okay, are you ready? So the first one, this might come as a surprise to you. My first tip is that you need to study. Some of us don't have to study as much as others. When I was at school, what I used to do, I used to love the huisgenoot. Don't love it so much anymore at the moment. But what I would do is I would lie on my bed with the huisgenoot, and then I would put like my actual book from school at the back. And pretend to study so that when my mom comes through the door and she says, "What you busy doing?" then I can say, "I'm busy studying." Meantime, back at the ranch, I'm busy, reading about Steve Hofmeyer and people in Igoli, which was very hot when I was that age. Was it, or did it start afterwards? Well, whatever, you catch my drift. This exam, even if you are smart and you only need to read through your material once or twice before you go and write your exam, well done, and still do that. Still go through that material and try and read material that is as close to the act as possible. I really get freaked out by learning legislation. I don't know, I obviously didn't have a lot of previous lifetimes where I was Latin, so it gets a bit much for me, the lingo in the actual act, and some of the very professional and amazing books out there are also really difficult for me to study or from. What I did with my material is I tried to stay as close as possible to the language within the act, because obviously you're going to be seeing those words in the exam. So there's no use to water it down and give you other words that you're not going to recognize when you get into the exam. So I've tried to use the language that is in the act and that you will see in the exam, but I try to put as much English as possible in between those words and to give you nice explanations of what it means and that kind of thing, instead of just copying and pasting the act, which obviously anybody could do. Okay, my second tip is, are you ready? Study. So just in case you missed that first part, I think it's really important. When Stefania and them were part of the FSB, it used to be called the FSB, obviously in those days in 2008, I was part of that workshop when we designed the outcomes for RE, and which would have been the second level regulatory exam, which was of course then replaced with class of business training, thank God. And I remember her saying that it's really important to her that only people that study the exam must be able to pass the exam. Well, I think, we've proven that point quite sufficiently. But I get it, I think what a lot of people don't understand necessarily is that when the FSB in those days used to go do audits, all of the key individuals and the directors and the CEOs and all the Lani and very important people around the boardroom table, would sit and fold their arms and look all important. But when a question was asked, by the FSB, then they would look at their compliance officers like, you should answer this. And then the FSB realized that even though the key individuals and the representatives are the ones that take ultimate responsibility, for compliance, that they're the ones that could be debarred, that they're the ones that could go to jail, that the FSP or the rep or the KI could be the person that needs to pay that fine. They're not really understanding what is right and what is wrong and what is acceptable and not acceptable in terms of the Act. And that is why they brought in these exams, to ensure that while you are rendering financial services and giving advice to your clients, and as a key individual ensuring that your reps are doing that on behalf of the authorized financial services provider, that you actually know what people should be doing and not be doing and saying and not be saying. And that's why we have the exam. So in order to pass that exam, study and then study some more. Okay, the next very important part, this is really important, is that you have to read. Yeah, I know it's a biggie. So some of you, like me, we love to jump to conclusions, right? And we feel because, we try and look smart sometimes more than what we are. We don't necessarily need to listen to the whole story, like read the full question, because we know it, Maybe it was because I watched too many, things on television, those competitions or things where you need to shout out the right word, or maybe it's just the way that I grew up, or maybe it's just my personality. But I'm just going to own it, okay? I jump to conclusions. I don't necessarily let somebody finish their sentence before I have the perfect answer and solution to your question or your problem. In this exam, like in relationships and in real life, we really shouldn't do that. Like you should listen to understand and not to answer. Same way here, before you're going to answer, read to understand and ensure that you know what it is that you read. Okay, if you missed that previous tip, I just want to reiterate at this point that it is really important in order to pass this exam that you should read the question very carefully. Are you sure that's what you read? Why don't you just read it again? So this is what I'm after. I want you to close the answers of that is going to come up, right? And I want you to read the question, and I want you to ensure, and something needs to happen inside here. I want you to ensure that what you read is actually what the question asks of you, and I want you to reread it and ensure that that is what you understand it to be. And then I want you to think of that answer before you go and look for the answer. And the reason being is that these guys, I'm sure, had a lot of fun designing these questions. So there are answers that are correct. Wait for it. Then there are more correct answers, right? I'm going to show you some examples. So when you see your answer, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the correct answer. It sounds like, we're married, right? Just because you said something that is right, you could have said something that was more right, Okay. So I'm assuming that all the guys that designed these questions are married, and they were really just very unhappy with their spouses when they designed these questions. But be that as it may, you really need to read and understand what you've read, and then ensure that you know the answer, close the answers, know that it is. And then when you see the correct answer, read all of them and ensure that there isn't an answer that is more correct. Okay. So is your answer there? Are you sure there isn't a more correct answer? When in doubt, choose C. No, I'm just joking. But it does happen. Seriously, I think I know the Act pretty well. And I don't think I've been able to score higher than 92, something like that. And that purely just is because there are questions that, yes, like, I don't know who knows those answers and whether that person lives on Earth. But yeah, so coincidentally, for the majority of them, I did choose C. I have no idea whether I chose the correct one or not. So, but no, it's just a joke. Okay, only the lonely. So a tip, and I'm going to show you one question that is contradictory to the tip I'm about to give you. But this tip is that when you see the word only in an answer, it is almost never ever correct. because as with us women and life and relationships, there are very few times that it's usually that, and remember that, and remember, when you looked at me like that, and that thing that happened 5 years ago. So just remember that. If you see the word only, I want like red lights to go off for you, and I want you to ensure that that you're doing the right thing there, right? And sure, what would be really great is if you can bring a whole lot of common sense to the exam, because sometimes you just need to like suss a question out, and regardless of what you know and what the Act says, you really just do need a little bit of common sense. And I'm going to try and show you what I mean by going through a couple of examples of questions that I designed. These questions might or might not look the same as actual questions from the actual exam. I just want to say at this point there's a disclaimer that any direct, copying is a bit of a harsh word. Let's just say that if coincidentally there are questions here that you've actually seen in the exam or that you will see in exam, it is purely coincidental, okay? What is the definition of advice in terms of the FAIS Act? Okay, so I was cute here, right? And very nice. And what I did here is I highlighted a couple of things for you in different colors to help you. Of course, I didn't go on with that during the duration of my slides because of two reasons. Number one, I got really lazy in doing it. And then secondly, most importantly, this is the real reason. Forget that lazy comment that I just made. So the reason why I stopped doing it is because obviously in the exam, there is no one that did this for you. So I want you to learn from this. Okay, so guys, this is just merely reading. I know it's a schlep, and it's just a process of elimination. You read, and that's where you need to study, because you need to, unfortunately, know the definition of advice like the back of your hand when you go and write this exam. Okay, so in the first one, it starts off very correctly. It's any recommendation, guidance, or proposal. I call them the 3 golden words of a financial nature by any means or medium to any client or groups of clients, absolutely, regarding the purchasing or investing of any banking product. Incorrect. Now, the FSCA only governs the non-banking financial services industry in South Africa. The banking part is, of course, governed by the Reserve Bank, and now that Twin Peaks has come in, obviously we refer to them as the Prudential Authority, and the FSCA is the fiduciary side, but that's not what this question is about. So just so that you know, that banking products are not governed by the FAIS Act. Check accounts and bonds and credit cards and things like that are not governed. Overdrafts. What is, however, governed, and the reason why banks need to be FAIS fit and proper, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what's this chick smoking? Well, I do live in Cape Town, so the answer should be pretty clear, in Komiki to be specific. So just by inhaling, outside, you by default, ingest a little bit of marijuana. But in any event, so the banking, as I said, is governed by the Reserve Bank. So the reason why banks are authorized financial services providers is when they sell a bond and an overdraft and a car and things like that, they are going to ask you to take out insurance on that, to protect their interest in the product. And therefore, they might give you the insurance, and because they give you the insurance, and insurance is a governed product in terms of the FAIS Act, banks needed to be FAIS fit and proper. Okay, so that is what makes that answer incorrect. The next one, what makes it incorrect, is general public. So general public is excluded from the definition of client. Client, or a group of clients, is obviously the actual client who is receiving the product, or your advice, or your recommendation, or your guidance or proposal, or a beneficiary, or somebody that would inherit it, successors in title and that kind of thing. Okay, the third one is correct. Now, I just want to bring your attention to the fourth one because I really like this. It says advice by a board member. Oh, gosh, it starts with the word advice. So I'm going to show you later on when I refer to what is not advice. So just watch out for that. So that correct answer. And you have to read and you have to study in order to get this right, is that one. Okay, next example. Okay, so just to put you into context, these are just a couple of questions that I've taken out of my mock exam. So there were a few that sort of built up to this question, right? That Samuel and Itumeleng are busy, interacting with one another regarding a financial product. Okay, so it says, during their discussion, what information must Samuel, who's the rep in this instance, obtain from Itumeleng, who's the client, in order for him to decide on an appropriate product to suit her needs? Now, what I like about this one is when you look at all of the answers, and obviously it looks clear now when they're highlighted in green, right? But they don't look also clear when they're all black and white in your exam. Financial situation, total gross annual income, financial product experience, her educational background, the objectives in terms of the financial product, and which bank she banks. And it all looks right, like, oh gosh, we're busy deciding what kind of financial product we're giving her. So obviously we need to know, how much money is she earning, and we want to know what kind of knowledge she has about financial services. So we want to know kind of questions. And then obviously when we sell this product, we need to know which bank she banks with, right? But this question is really just asking you that when we conduct a financial needs analysis, an F&A with a client, what are the 3 things that we need to get from the client in order to give the client the correct product? Now, according to the Act, that are financial situation, the product experience, and the objectives in terms of the financial products. I call them the past, present, and future. I need to look at the client's past, what have they been exposed to? I need to look at their current situation. What is the current situation? And I need to look at their future. Why are they sitting in front of me? What is it that they want to get from me? What out of this conversation, out of the financial products that I can offer them, out of the advice that I can give them? What is it that they want to do? Oh, they want to invest money for their children's education. Okay. They haven't invested anything as yet. And they only have short-term insurance. That's what I want to know. All the other things are important and relevant and beautiful, and we're building rapport and we're getting a feel for one another, and it's all pretty. But it's not what I need in order to conduct an F&A. In order to conduct an F&A, I need to look at 3 things and 3 things only. So when you see this kind of question in the exam, that is what you need to focus on. Next example. So now Samuel is a sole proprietor and he works from a small home office. And now that Itumeleng cancelled the policy, so she took the policy and now she cancelled it, how long does he need to keep her documentation for? There's always lots of stories, but this question obviously is really asking you is once a client has cancelled the policy, for how long do we need to keep documentation? Now we need to keep documentation for a minimum of 5 years from when the client cancelled or terminated the policy, not from when the policy was incepted, when they took it, when they cancelled it. So the first one is incorrect because it says minimum of 5 years, and when you jump into those conclusions, right, and you just see minimum of 5 years, you're going to choose A. A is not the correct answer because it is from date of inception of policy, but the more correct answer is the last one. The reason why the second one is wrong is because I have changed the word maximum, minimum for maximum. There isn't a maximum. You can keep documents indefinitely, but you have to keep it for a minimum of 5 years. And then 3 years, just one of those nice ones that is obviously wrong. They're not always that obvious. And the correct one is that he must keep a record of this transaction for a period of a minimum of 5 years after date of termination of the policy. Okay, in terms of the code of conduct, a representative must, and here I underlined code of conduct. Now again, when you look at these options, act honestly and fairly, have and effectively use your resources, conduct an F&A, treat clients fairly in a situation of conflicting interest, comply with all the applicable statutory and common law requirements, and then, of course, provide your clients with a minimum of 3 quotations. They all look right. Gosh, what is wrong here? The issue is that the question very clearly asks you that all it wants to know is which of the following, how many are there, 6 options are actually prescribed to you in the code of conduct. So right, guess again, you actually have to know, you should have studied and know which of the following is part of the code of conduct. So even though, unless you're dealing with a direct insurer, number 6, provide clients with a minimum of 3 different quotations, it's sort of like a norm, it's an unwritten rule in the financial services industry. It is not prescribed in any act whatsoever. We say that if you are able to, you must give a choice, and that when you do that, you must be objective and you should only highlight differentiating characters, and that you may not make any unsubstantiated, unfair criticisms about another product, blah, blah, blah. But we never say that you actually have to give a client 3 quotations. So you need to know the code of conduct in order to know which the correct options are. And then obviously you then need to say, okay, so it's this and this and this and this. Which one is it? Oh, it's A or B or whatever the case may be. Okay, again, another example. What information should be included in the representative register that goes to the FSCA? Name of the representative and their respective key individual. Yep. Role within the organization. The business address of the FSP. Whether the rep is employed by the FSP or acts in a mandatory role. Yep. The categories in which the rep may render financial services. Absolutely. Cell phone and home address of the rep. Absolutely not. The department that the representative works in, and the name of the supervisor or department head. No. So again, you need to know, when we tell you in our material in the Act, you know, what must be included in the rep register. And I suggest that you look at an example. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can just look at those headings. What do I need to be complete? I need to say whether the person's working under supervision or not, what product categories they are in, is it for intermediary services, advice, or both, all those things. But a lot of these things won't be necessary, and definitely never personal information. So just know that that's where the common sense comes in, right? Okay, the code of conduct at ABC brokers who deal with long-term insurance products does not in particular have to contain, oh my gosh, the English. And as you can hear from my accent, my Afrikaans, you know, I love, one of my employees always say he's Ndebele. And when he makes an error in English, he says, René, you have to remember that for me, English came on a ship. So for me, English came on a ship as well, you know, so it is not my first language. And I do understand that it gets a bit much. But okay, so let's look at what this question really is asking us. ABC broker is not relevant. The fact that it's long-term insurance products is not relevant. What it's asking is which of the following must be in a code of conduct and which mustn't be. So it says does not in particular have to contain. So what you're looking for is what will not be part of the code of conduct. Lines of reporting relevant to the representative. Making adequate disclosures, absolutely. Avoiding fraudulent and misleading advertising, absolutely. Protection of funds and documentation, yep, it's called custody. Repercussions of non-compliance, identifications of clients is FICA. So again, you need to know what is part of the code of conduct and what isn't, so that you know what does not have to be contained within it. Okay, so just quickly looking at that, I would say that the answer there is the first one, 1, 5, and 6. If you want to know what the right answers are, then you can pay for my material, and then I give you my mock exam on the answers for free. Okay. All right. I love this question. Okay. Listen up. How, operative word of this question is the word how. How must the FSP display their license? And I just highlighted the word only for you in pink, only the lonely, in head office only. But now, if you just saw this question, you see FSP license, head office only. No, it's not only. René said only the lonely is not always correct. There's the correct answer. In head office and all of the branches, the correct answer is B, move on, and then you get your results and you failed by one question, right? You got 64% for the exam, and you go, why? This is why, dude, because the question says how, not where, okay, not what. An uncertified copy must be displayed in the reception area. No, it doesn't say, it says in a prominent and a durable manner in the Act. and definitely not uncertified. So the correct answer, how the FSP must display their license, is a certified copy must be displayed in a prominent and durable manner. Okay, what are the responsibilities of the key individual? Another example where all of them look right, however, only 3 are prescribed in terms of the Act, and that is why you need to study the Act. Okay, must be able to have and maintain the operational ability of the FSP, absolutely. Fulfill the responsibilities imposed by the Act, absolutely. Oversee the activities of the FSP, yeah. The rendering of financial services, which is being rendered by the reps, the supervision and overseeing the rendering of that is a responsibility of a key individual. Complete and submit the compliance report to the FSCA. Wow, if you have a key individual that's doing that, kudos for you and well done, but it's not prescribed in terms of the Act. In fact, anyone can complete and submit the compliance report to the FSCA. Obviously, the compliance officer will check that it happens, but it is not a responsibility of the key individual. So the correct answer is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, only. A provider must maintain a record of advice furnished to the client, which must reflect a brief summary of the information and the financial products considered. Yep. The financial products recommended with an explanation of why the product or products were selected. Absolutely. Here's the incorrect one. Telephone numbers, fax numbers, ID numbers of both the rep and the KI. However, if you quickly read this question and quickly read the answer, and you saw that first one, and you saw a brief summary of the information and the financial products considered, correct, the correct answer is A. Again, you would have gotten this question incorrectly because the most correct answer is D, because both A and B will be correct. And please just watch out for this in the exam. Okay, Cheesy Cars, a second-hand car dealership, also sells short-term insurance policies. How do they need to comply with the relevant legislation? Love this question. They need to comply with FAIS and FSP as they are an accountable institution. So firstly, they're not accountable. They will be a reportable institution because they deal with cars, right? But this is my favorite, is they need to comply with FAIS only. There's only the lonely again. Red lights, guys. They need to comply with FAIS, with FSP, as they are a reportable institution. And here it is. And all other relevant legislation, because look how closely this answer is the same as the last one, which says they need to comply with FAIS and FSP only as they are a reportable institution. That is correct. However, it is not the most correct answer, ladies and gentlemen. The most correct answer is C, because although we would love to live in a world, well, not me, but maybe some of you, where we only need to comply with FAIS and FSP, unfortunately, there are like 1,000 other acts, or fortunately, that we need to comply with, like the Labour Relations Act and Employment Equity and POPI and Health and Safety and all those like things. So remember to look for the most complete and the most correct answer. With which institution will you verify whether credits and qualifications gained are recognized in terms of the competence requirement of fit and proper? Now, hopefully, because, not a lot of people, again, would have put this in their material, and maybe you've never heard of IISA because you've just joined the industry and this is like the first thing your boss said you need to do is study for and write this exam and you don't know who they are. It helps here if you have a little bit of common sense, if you didn't know them. So CIPRO, obviously the guys that register companies, that we check whether companies are registered. FPI is the Financial Planning Institute. They're a professional body. FIA is the Financial Intermediary Advisor. Is it advisory? What? No, FIA. Okay, just forget that. Sorry, FIA. I have forgotten. Financial Intermediary Association, I'm sure. Sorry. But the correct answer there is IISA. So just by trying to work out who it might not be, hopefully, even if you don't know who INSETA is, which is obviously the Insurance Sectoral Education and Training Authority, and the guys responsible for the insurance qualifications. Obviously, I think this is not necessarily the most correct answer, because you could have done qualifications with a lot of different providers that are unnecessarily registered with INSETA, like IISA, and obviously you could have done stuff through BankSETA and some of the other investment guys. But in this instance, the most correct answer is INSETA. Compliance officers have specific duties in terms of FAIS. Which of the following is not a duty of a compliance officer? Look, I suggest you take pens, Cokies, highlighters, red pens, blue pens, every pen, just to help you when you go through these questions, that when you see not, you underline and you highlight and you ensure that what you're looking for now is not the correct answer. You're looking for the answer that is not correct in order to be correct. You with me, right? Obviously, if you have a question like that, it is impossible for you to think of the correct answer without going through all of them. Like my tip said in the beginning, obviously that's only relevant if you can. Okay, so let's check. So it says monitoring whether the FSP key individuals and reps comply with the General Code of Conduct as well as the provisions of the FAIS Act. Yep. Reporting to the FSP and FSCA at set intervals, they have to do that. Preparing, signing off and submitting the annual financial statements to the FSCA is not a duty or responsibility of a compliance officer. I'm going to tell you why in a second. And making recommendations to the FSP regarding compliance with the Act, that is absolutely a responsibility. So sometimes, this might just hoy you a little bit, because they do submit it when they submit your annual compliance report to the FSCA, but they definitely do not prepare and sign it off. That would be your accounting officer or your accountant or your auditor that needs to do that, unless, of course, you are a 1.1 or a 1.19 product category FSP, or you're a sole proprietor, which means that you can do your own and you only have to submit your balance and income statement. But thinking of all the others, that actually do need to submit annual financial statements, that would definitely not be prepared and signed off by a compliance officer. Susanna Kukamur is a broker who owns her own brokerage, and because she is a one-man business, that sounds a bit sexist, sorry about that, a one-woman business, and acts as a rep and a KI, which you can be all of it. You can be a rep, a KI if it's your own brokerage, if you're a sole proprietor. You can even be your own compliance officer. You only need to appoint a compliance officer, which could still be you if there's more than one rep and a KI. Okay, but not the issue here. The real question is, under which conditions may her license lapse? Now again, very important for you to understand here the difference between lapsing of a license, which is usually a voluntary decision made by the broker or the key individual or the owner of the FSP, unless of course they died or they're incapable of making that decision. Then obviously that would have been in their will, or they have somebody else's power of attorney, and then the license will lapse. However, very important that this is completely different from when the commissioner used to be the registrar, referred to as the registrar, now referred to as the commissioner of the FSCA. When they take a regulatory action against you, which can only be, declaring you an undesirable business practice, withdrawing the license, suspending the license, or then instituting their civil rights against you, which means they sue you. So what I'm looking for here is not something that the commissioner does to you because you did the wrong thing. So A is wrong, when her license is withdrawn. No. When Susanna dies or she is sequestrated or she voluntarily surrenders her license, absolutely. Only the lonely, when she voluntarily surrenders her license, definitely incorrect, because there are a lot of other circumstances. And then A and B is obviously wrong, because even though B is correct, A is incorrect. So the correct answer in this instance is when she dies, she is sequestrated or voluntarily surrenders her license back to the FSCA. That is when it will lapse. So the operative word in your question there is lapse. That is why it's necessary to read. Which of the following does not have to be disclosed by FSPs to clients? This is an easy question. I'm just giving it to you as an example, to lighten the load at this stage so that you can, drink a glass of water and feel, that everything's lacquer. I'm hoping that you feel lacquer, right throughout this video, but here's an easy one for you. Broker commissions have to be disclosed. If you can't work out the exact rand value, you at least need to tell the client how it will be, the percentage value and based on what, etc., etc. Have to disclose broker commissions. I'm going to skip the next obvious one. Contact details of the compliance department must be disclosed. Contact details of your financial services provider must be disclosed. Even though a premium must obviously be disclosed because that's what the client needs to pay, reinsurance premiums do not need to be disclosed. So if I'm putting an Audi R8 on cover, but my underwriting retentions only cover the first R1,000,000 and the balance of the value of the vehicle will be reinsured with a reinsurer, obviously. I don't need to tell the client that and how much is being reinsured and how much it's going to cost to reinsure it. I don't need to tell that to the client. I only need to tell the client what the total premium will be, which will obviously include everything, including the reinsurance premium. But I don't need to tell the client what that is. Okay, which of the following activities do not qualify as CPD activities? This used to be a horrible question even before CPD kicked in, and people were like, why do we need to know this? Because CPD hasn't even kicked in yet. So obviously it's a little bit easier now because you guys have started doing CPD activities. However, what I want to show you here is the process of elimination, and knowing what it can't be by default tells you what it could be. So product training cannot be a CPD activity. Okay. When you do something that is part of the product and leading to a full qualification, it can't lead for CPD. If it doesn't, then obviously it can. So like RE training can give CPD points, and a lot of other things class of business can give you CPD, but product training can't. So even if you didn't know that IISA exams can and seminars and conferences can, obviously if it leads and it's specific and it helps you and makes you better and smarter and all those things, just knowing that product training can't, which is prescribed in the Act, would help you answer that question. Oh, this question. What are the objectives of the FAIS Act? Look at these options. To regulate the rendering of certain financial advisory services to clients only. There's only again. To regulate the rendering of certain financial intermediary services to clients only. To regulate the rendering of certain financial advice, okay, and intermediary services to clients, and compare that with the correct answer, the most correct answer, which is the last one, to regulate the rendering of certain financial advisory and intermediary services to clients. Now, to be honest, the first time I saw this question in exam, and you might be a little bit worried now to say, why did she see this question more than once? How many times did this chick have to write it? So obviously being a responsible trainer and provider of services to you, my valued clients, I feel it's only fair that I go and regularly write the exams to see how the exams are changing and how questions are changing. And I can definitely see a difference from when we started way back in the day, the types of questions they asked, how they asked it, versus how they ask it now. So I, every year or so, try to go and write the exam to ensure that my training is on par and that my mock exams are preparing you sufficiently to pass the exam. Okay. The correct answer is the last one. Now, even though the word advisory doesn't really, I don't think at all, features in the Act, and the only word that we talk about in terms of the Act is advice. As per the Act, the objectives of the FAIS Act is to regulate the rendering of certain financial advisory and intermediary services to clients. And therefore, the third option there, let me try and go back, that says financial advice and intermediary services to clients is not correct. The correct answer is the last one. Okay. Cuthbert works at a medical aid brokerage, and on the 17th of January, newborn son, Julius, was born, and he adds it onto his medical aid. And then he sends through this amendment on the medical aid to the underwriter, which is Momentous Cover. And the question really just wants to know, which of the following financial services did Cuthbert provide? Now, my dear darlings, what I really need you to know at this point is there are only two financial services that can be rendered in terms of the Act, and that is either advice or intermediary services, or both. But you cannot render administrative service. Now, any job, most jobs, I don't know of any jobs that do not involve some little bit of admin. Even if you are the janitor and you clean the toilets at Momentous Cover, you still have to do like a tick sheet and clock in and out and, check your pay slip and things like that. So there's even admin there. However, in terms of the Act, nothing in terms of financial services is ever referred to as administrative services. So when you see the question, which of the following financial services did Cuthbert provide, all we need to establish here is, did he give advice? Did he provide an intermediary service, or both? Now, in this case, he did not advise the client on anything. He did not make a recommendation. He did not make a proposal or anything like that. And he did not recommend. He didn't say, oh, your son needs to do da. Client phones in, I've got a son, congratulations, and we're going to add him on cover for you. And you complete the forms and you send it through to the underwriter. So in Cuthbert's case, and this is the only example where the word only is actually correct. In this case, the correct answer is intermediary service only. Admin is not a financial service. What is financial services? Now, in my material, and I just quickly wanted to show you this, financial services in terms of the Act refer to only two things, advice and intermediary services. You're either doing one or the other or both. And then in my material, I actually give you this tip and say, please note that most professions include certain amounts of administration. However, don't get caught out in the exam. Okay, next question. When dealing with a client, a representative needs to provide the client with certain documentation. Which of the following is not necessary to provide? Now, here is an example of where a little bit of common sense will help you if everything else fails you. The last one, certified proof of the rep's employment contract. So even though it's called a Section 13 certificate, even though you need to give the client certified proof that you are acting on behalf of the FSP, that there are suitable guarantees and professional indemnity and insurance in place, and that you are either a rep or mandated, and that the FSP accepts responsibility for you, you're not going to give them a copy of your employment contract to say, oh, and you earn 10,000 Rand a month and you're entitled to, 20 days annual leave and 3 days, family responsibility leave and blah, blah, blah. When an FSP does not adhere to the requirements of the Act or provided incorrect information when applying for a license, the Commissioner may. Now, I love this question. Lapse is not something that the Commissioner does. Lapse is something that the FSP or somebody that acts on behalf of the FSP does, right? Revoke the license. Cancel the license. Yep. Suspend the license. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, in the Act, even though when a license is suspended, we may, when you look at synonyms for words, revoke could be one, cancel could be one. Cancel is almost the same as withdraw, right? I withdraw my love from you and therefore I cancelled my love. Pretty much means the same. In terms of the Act, okay, commissioners do not revoke and cancel things. They do either one of two things when it comes to your license, and I'm not talking about the undesirable business practice now and instituting civil proceedings, right? They're going to do either one of two things with your license or possibly then both. He either suspends your license, which is temporarily, And depending on what happens, and if you pay the fine or the fee or whatever the case may be, that suspension can be lifted and you can continue as normal. Or he withdraws the license, which is a final act, and then your license is, goodbye. He doesn't revoke or cancel the license. So in this instance, the only correct answer will be suspend the license. When accepting a complaint, the Ombudsman may require the respondent to pay a case fee. This used to be relevant, but it is not charged any longer. So important that when you study material, you study the latest material which is available, because things happen, The FSCA changes things. They now refer to themselves as the FSCA and not the FSB. The registrar is now the commissioner. All sorts of things have changed, and one of the things that have changed is that the case fee is not charged any longer. So you need to get the right material, right, and study from the correct material, which must be the latest updated material, because things change. Okay, now this is an example of where it's really important to know the words out of the Act, but preferably, you had also material which had some English in between. So the word in the Act refers to commissions and all sorts of charges and anything that you are charging the client as valuable considerations. Could also include incentives, all of it. And there are 3 things that you need to disclose about valuable considerations to the client. It's the nature and the extent and the frequency. What are we charging you? How much is it going to be, and how often are you going to pay it? Is it a once-off? Is it annual? Is it monthly? So the period is the correct answer here, because that does not need to be disclosed to the client. It's just, a word that I couldn't think of anything better to put in there. But the correct one is nature, extent, and frequency, valuable considerations. So if you haven't learned anything already in my video, hopefully this is one of them. If you didn't know it already, a client is defined in the Act does not include the client that concluded the original transaction is obviously the client. The person is the successor in title is, and the beneficiary of the product is. And I referred to this aspect in my very first question to you. Members of the general public is not considered as a client or group of clients in terms of the definition of a client in terms of the Act. And again, very necessary that you need to study. We're almost done. Which of the following products are not governed in terms of FAIS? Now remember, I said right in the beginning as well, first question, that the banking industry is not governed in terms of FAIS. It's the non-banking financial services, and you obviously need to know which product categories are governed in terms of FAIS to be able to answer this question. But then once you do know it, it's actually very easy. So check account is banking and it's not governed. A credit life protection plan is insurance, which is governed. A 32-day call account is a deposit, and long-term deposits and short-term deposits less than and over 12 months is governed in terms of the Act. It is a financial product governed by the FAIS Act, and insurance is insurance. So the correct answer, which is not governed in terms of FAIS, is your check account. Okay, now, and I just put some of these questions in to show you that even though they look really difficult, they're actually not that difficult, and just to give you a little bit extra, not just, the tips I started off with. Which subcategory from the list below appears in Category 1 but not in Category 2? It looks hectic, but it actually isn't. So Category 1 providers cover all of the financial services products and all of the subcategories, but Category 2 providers are only discretionary providers. Now, discretionary providers, as the name suggests, means that they may use their discretion. So when you invest with them, or you insure with them, or you start your relationship with them in the beginning, you must probably sign some other contract with them where you allow them to make certain decisions on your behalf. Let me give you an example. Those of you that watched Wolf on Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, or any stockbroker thing, or so on and so on, will understand this very well. in that kind of situation, when you've got a broker that is investing money on your behalf and they see a great opportunity and they only have 3 seconds to make this decision. Oh, another example is Billions, love Billions. They don't phone you. They don't phone all of their clients and say, oh, we're taking your money out of oil and we're putting it in, China on a vaccine of the coronavirus or whatever the case may be, because they don't have the luxury of time. By the time that you've thought about it, the opportunity has been lost. Therefore, what they need to do is have your permission to move around your money, and hopefully they're good and hopefully they will make a profit, which is why you chose them in the first place. But they have discretion. Okay, now there are certain products where it's not relevant, like for instance, medical aid and short-term insurance. Your short-term insurance broker can't use their discretion and go, I know my client's got an Audi on cover, but I think I should put a Mercedes-Benz on cover for her. Do you understand what I'm saying? Those are pure risk policies. You don't get anything back if you don't claim. And please, no pun intended on the ones where you actually do get something back when you don't claim. That is just a benefit and not how the policy works. Risk-based policies like a medical aid, if you're not in an accident and you don't have to go for that major operation and stay in hospital for 6 weeks, it's not like you go back to them at the end of the year and say, I want my premiums back. Yes, I know, guys like Discovery obviously incentivize you when you don't and all those things. It's not what I'm referring to. But participatory interest in one or more collective investment schemes will fall under Category 2. Forex will definitely fall under Category 2, and your long-term subcategory B1 will fall into Category 2. So in my material, once again, I showed you very clearly which ones that form part of Category 1 cannot form part of Category 2, and hopefully with the explanation I've just given you, that'll make sense of why, like a funeral policy will not form part of Category 2, but they will form part of Category 1 because all of the different financial services products will form part of Category 1. Okay, advice is about procedures to do a financial transaction. It's not advice. Describing a financial product is not advice. Answering routine admin queries is not advice. And then the last one is providing guidance on a loan or cession against a financial product. And again, if you understand and know the definition of advice, and you know that it is any guidance, recommendation, or proposal by any means to any clients of group or clients, however you're doing it, at a braai or over the phone on any financial product, and whether it's got to do with investing in it or changing or taking out a loan or a cession, seeding it, blah, 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 you would know that the correct answer here will be that. And even if you didn't, just knowing that advice is not stuff that anybody can give you. Like, even if I say to you, if a client says, how must I claim? And I say to the client, well, we need a copy of your ID and a sketch and description of the accident and the police case number. I purely gave factual information to a client, and anybody could have given that to the client. That is not advice. I didn't make a recommendation or proposal. I didn't guide the client and say, look, I suggest you definitely take out, comprehensive cover on your vehicle. We must definitely add on vehicle credit shortfall for you because the outstanding amount at the financial services institution is greater than the retail value or the insured value on your vehicle, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and just to prove that to you, right, an expert from the Act, what is advice? It is any recommendation, guidance, or proposal. When you see those words, green lights must start flashing for you because it usually is referring to advice, unless it's not, which I'm going to show you in 1 second. And it says they're purchasing, investing, da-da-da-da-da. Okay. Advice is not very important to know. Factual advice given, like procedures describing, answering. And then just please check those last 2 bullet points, or let's call it the last 3 bullet points. Advice given by Board of Management, Board of Trustees about benefits of members and so forth. Now, they catch you out in the exam because they say, which one of the following would be advice? And then they say, oh, like, if you're just recommending to a client what they need to, reinvest, like the interest on the investment, to green light, that is advice. And then you think, and then there are two things like that can't be advice, like, just displaying promotional material or telling a client how to institute a claim. And then they gooi in this sneaky one and they say advice given by board of management, and that technically is not advice. So very important for you again to read again. Are you sure that's what you read? Are you sure that's the correct answer? Are you sure you don't want to change your mind? Okay. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you found this video informative and that it assisted you in preparing better for the exam and to watch out for those sneaky pitfalls that they've put in the exam for you. I wish you the most amazing luck, and may the universe be with you. I always, before I go and write those exams and when I train people, say, pray to everyone that is important to you, or whatever ceremony it is that you believe in, and just ask your ancestors or the universe or the angels or whatever it is that you believe in to give you your paper, the one that you will be passing, and hopefully with all of the tips that I've given you, that will assist you to pass that exam the first time. That is really my hope for everybody in this industry, that all the competent people that should be out there giving advice, that knows what they're talking about and acting in the best interest of clients and doing the right thing, and where their heart is in the right place, that you all succeed and pass this exam first time around. And I hope that this helped you. Again, my name is Renee. If you want more information, if you want to get your hands on my material, then do not hesitate to contact me. Our website is learninsurance.co.za, and you can contact us at the email address info@learninsurance.co.za. And good luck, peace out, take care, cheers.